Disclaimer: there may be some explicit content in this stream that you may find offensive and or otherwise. Sorry if I hurt your feelings. Here's the episode. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Mainstream Dissident. My name is Adam and I'll be your host. This episode is being recorded on Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2026. And guys, remember, if you like what you hear today, go ahead and click that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. It really does help. Now, you guys may have not heard of my guest before, but if you haven't, you should be thanking me. This dude is one of the most badass streamers out there. He is entertaining. Instead of TV, you guys should be watching his content. I have with me none other than a guy that goes by Flood. His handle is OMG It's Flood, floodshow.live, floodshow.live, 8 in the morning and 8 at night. Without further to do, I have with me here Flood. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing quite well, man. Thank you for inviting me, and happy Valentine's Day.
Oh, thanks, buddy. Thanks, buddy. I will I will say it right back to you, but I don't no gay stuff on the mainstream dissident stream today. Um so did I miss anything in that intro? What can the guests expect if they check out your content after we get done here?
Most likely disappointment, I think, and maybe a little offense,
Yeah.
but really cornball jokes. Maybe overdoing it on the soundboard quite a bit, and music, copyrighted music. You should know that.
Oh yeah, dude, I'll tell you what. I have burst out laughing at some of the deadpan delivery you have, at some of the most obscene comments. If you guys just so you're aware, I don't know if you would want to put your stuff flood stuff on around kids or not, but I thoroughly enjoy it. I will put your streams on to lift to if I just, got home from work, just chilling, doing something, working on the cars. I'll put on the flood show. And it's honestly a very uh chill stream. Your audience, I think, are pretty cool people. You guys, if you guys watch his show, you'll kind of understand more and more what I'm into. But yeah, where across do you want to name all the platforms you stream on?
Sure. Um, I'm on ftjmedia.com. Also on Rumble, which most folks know about. Twitter, of course, because you have to be on Twitter these days. A couple of smaller platforms. One called Maji Media, which is a friend of mine's endeavor, and of course Entropy. What else are we on? We're also on Crusaders.gg, which is an up and coming site that people may be hearing about soon, and another site called 88 Streams, which will be public within the next few days, I believe.
Yeah, man. One of my buddies, Bastion, he's on 88 streams, so that's cool, dude. That's cool. So buddy, how long have you been live streaming? What inspired you? How did you get started?
That's a great question. I started out making content, and I made an audiobook of Mein Kampf, and that was very expensive. It took a really long time to make, and I crowdsourced that book. And I thought if I started live streaming, my friend HT at the time was making a lot of money live streaming, and he was very entertaining. And so I started live streaming too to support my content production work. And it took a little while, but it started to catch on at a time when things were really on the upswing, and the flyering program was really making national news. Uh, Started doing very well with the live stream. So that kind of funded my audiobook and deep fake content production. And I really just stuck with it. I started this in late 2023 or maybe mid 2023. And we're going on our third year here pretty soon, our third year anniversary with the live stream. Where we're at and where we're going has changed, man. When I came into this, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Goyim TV, or how Goyim TV was going a couple of years ago, but it was completely different back then. Very, very high energy, There were a lot of very, very enthusiastic activists that were all over the country. And this program they put together was incredibly ingenious with the flyers. They had a centralized site where there were about 30 or 40 different flyers, all about Jewish supremacy, because or GTV particularly, was very focused on Jewish supremacy. And there was just so much energy and so much action there that when I started, we were kind of like this team of almost elite. I guess you would say the media would say neo Nazis. I suppose that's probably a loaded word, but we were very, very adamant about racial consciousness for white people, and at that time, this was sort of an elite thing I kind of fell into, and we really, really did a lot of great work. Over time, though, friends come and go, and things change, and after a while, you kind of find yourself kind of alone, where you may not have been the most extreme guy in the field at one point in time. You can find yourself in that position by de facto, and in a lot of cases, you can get a lot of attention that you may not necessarily want. Uh, from various groups. So when we started this, I had a pretty clear direction where we were headed, and now things have changed quite a bit in the landscape. The noticing, as we call it, which is really this mass awareness that people seem to be experiencing, has really caught on. And since that has kind of mainstreamed what I would call the Jewish question, or maybe the Jewish problem, to people who wouldn't normally be talking about that sort of thing, kind of it was like a long-term goal of ours to get these talking points into the public, right? But once the public took those on, it's taken on a life of its own now. And I think a lot of us that really worked particularly on the JQ find ourselves asking, what are we going to do now? I don't know if that makes sense, but that's where I'm at right now.
No, that
It's kind of an ongoing process.
that makes perfect sense. And even though I only started my show, what, 6 months ago, I've had background changes, I've changed the lighting, I've done this, that, and the third. And it is, if you're not keeping up with things, or you're not evolving, if you will, you're kind of doing it wrong, because then you're stagnating. And I think you've said on stream before, it kind of gets boring. But I try to, for my viewers out there, I try to kind of give them, like, it's baby's first red pill, if you will. That way they can go on in their journey. I try to think where I was in my life, in my headspace, whenever I was first turned on to the JQ, etc. And then I try to go from there. I just want to be a bridge of thought, and then next thing you know, hey, these guys are tuning into the Flood Show. These guys are watching some of our friends, some of the guys you mentioned even. Um, but let's talk about the elephant in the room. People are probably watching this on screen and being like, "What the heck is going on? How did Flood get this to happen? Is this what he really looks like? This is it's just it's a masterpiece, honestly. You are a technical wizard, buddy, and you got started with those translated speeches. So you use AI heavily in your streams. Um, do you have any projects like your translated speeches going on right now?
Yeah, actually, a number of them. Uh, Essentially, I've started doing private work for some people. I've been approached by some people that wanted, maybe some personal stuff done, or in a lot of cases, like family photos upsampled. I worked with a lot of different AI, as you mentioned, and it's something I started out just making audiobooks. I think I saw a clip of Emma Watson reading Mein Kampf, and this was a pretty viral clip. It was about one paragraph of Mein Kampf, and that 3-minute video had gone all over YouTube. And I found out what site they were using to model people's voices. And so it was a site called 11 Labs. A lot of people know 11 Labs now. I started cloning voices and started making deep fakes. And I thought, we're just going to make funny deep fakes. We're going to make guys who would never say certain things say things they would never say. And so I started using this to tell the truth about things, to kind of tell the subtext, to when they come on the television and gaslight you, you know they're not really saying, the words that are coming out of their mouth. They're always telling you something else, right? So I started to just try to remove that veneer of fakeness that we get from the mainstream media. And I was not the most imaginative person, so I just put in a whole lot of, really bad words that you're not supposed to say on the internet, and made it really crass and vile and vulgar. And this really caught on fast with people. People really liked that, and I was surprised at first. But I just started making funny stuff, and making people say the N word, really. That's really what it felt like at the time. But it was using this new technology to tell the truth, and that was something I don't think they intended. And so that got pretty popular, and so the live stream just naturally followed. Audiobooks were always something I sort of did as a side project, but over time, that became the main thing that I wanted to do, just because you don't really feel like your comedy and your kind of trash humor is really that important in the movement. You feel like Mein Kampf is, or The International Jew by Henry Ford, or perhaps White Power by George Lincoln Rockwell. So you have this serious side where you're always putting together content and you really intend to make a difference with it. But what gets popular is the non-serious side of things, and that's how you can sustain yourself. So you start to find yourself doing this balancing act, and I'm sure you'll experience that if you haven't already, between making content, a side job and a main job, basically.
Yeah, man, and you hit the nail on the head there. Like, I will try to be on X. I will try to be, profound and meaningful, and I'll say some. I'll get 20 likes. I'll get 20 likes on something like that. But if I like just post something like it's always them, next thing you know, I'm getting a hundred likes. I'll get 10 reposts. You know how it goes. Um, but it's important to have that balancing act. One of your more to me, one of your more funny clips is it was right after the Charlie Kirk assassination. You had the good old infomercial guy, Billy Mays. Billy Mays here with the magic neck bone. Dude, that I was dying laughing at that. That was great. It's the content that you create. It's hard to look away from. The AI songs that you've created, they are almost hypnotically catchy. I sent around your GLR one, George Lincoln Rockwell, for those who don't know, to my friends recently because you posted it on X. They were like, "Yo, I got to check this out," and I'm like, "Yes, you do." So the Emma Watson translated speeches, you didn't create the original clip, or did you just expand upon that?
The first clip, I think the first clip definitely inspired me to do more of the book, because I wanted more of that first clip. I thought her voice was interesting enough to make me want to hear more, and I never really thought of it as manipulation. But when you're kind of experimenting with this technology, you're always trying new things, and so I had a voice, and I had it reading Mein Kampf in these terribly long passages, hours and hours of audio. And I thought, what if I could animate, a model of Emma Watson, and make her, be the source of the voice. So the deep fake just came naturally. At that time, technology for deep fakes was not very good, and it took a long time to render. Basically, really bad deep fakes. But I actually cut out an SS uniform and placed it right over her body. I found her speaking at an event, and it was just everything fit right. I even put the Mein Kampf book in her hands, with GIMP, I think, and started to animate just from one frame. And once I realized that you can do so much from just one frame with somebody's image, that it was really, you're only limited by your own imagination. It was really kind of a golden age where the AI hadn't become where there's just slop everywhere. There weren't a lot of people using it. Nobody was using it for educating or teaching anybody. And so for a short, brief moment there, you could be an innovator in a new form of media that was very internet friendly. And we took full advantage of that, and brainstormed, made all kinds of crazy stuff. You mentioned the Billy Mays commercial. after Charlie Kirk got assassinated, I'm sure everybody was probably sitting thinking to themselves like, how could they do this again? How could they do this like in front of everybody? And just the confusion that was happening, and the FBI coming up with nothing for weeks, and just seeing the betrayal happen in slow motion really got me thinking about just doing something super satirical. And I think when I heard a medical report mentioned that his neck, that his spine stopped a 30-06 bullet from like 100 yards away, I just thought, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. So immediately the miracle neck bone just, I don't know why it pops into your head. Maybe Billy Mays is living in your subconscious somewhere. He's just waiting for that right moment to come out and have that right idea. All the good ones go like that too. And so you get very obsessed with grabbing photos. I need a picture of Billy Mays. Let's go to YouTube. Let's get his voice. Let's get that recorded. And you just get struck by lightning, and then 3 hours later you got this infomercial, and it's completely ridiculous. And you don't think, you start to think, maybe I shouldn't publish this. Maybe I'm a little bit crazy. Nobody's gonna like this. This was just a dumb idea. But people really like that commercial, and so the crazier that you get, and just like, if our people need to laugh, man. We're very serious most of the time. We get fatigued. We travel. We go through a lot of bad news. If what you're doing, you're probably looking at a lot of bad news, or headlines that are just demoralizing over time, and you need to decompress sometimes. And so people responded really well to that, and yeah, I felt like I was doing good at it. So you just keep on going and going and going. Now there's so many people using AI, you can't tell what's real anymore. So the worm is turning still, and like you'd mentioned before, we find ourselves at a time where we have to adapt again, right? And you're constantly adapting. This mask that you see didn't exist 3 days ago. I just learned how to do this, with it less than 100 hours ago, but we've already deployed it, and I've already got a whole show direction planned out around it. But that's what we do. Is you have to be very, very flexible and very, very able to adapt.
Yeah, man. Adaptability is the name of the game. Now, before I ask you this next question, like, a lot of my audience knows this as well. Like, I'm a Christian, I'm a National Socialist. So, as a Christian, I have to ask, um, so what's the deal? You put electric into rocks and sand, and then you make the computer. Is AI demons, dude? That's what I'm trying to ask. Is AI demons? It's a little
I
tongue in
think that's
cheek.
a very good question. Depending on how you consider intelligence, and depending on what you consider consciousness to be, I could probably make you a fairly convincing argument that there is maybe a possibility for a dimensional, maybe a trans-dimensional communication, if you believe in such a thing as dimensions. I do think there is some aspect of maybe some technology that maybe we didn't come up with, right? I don't think that's too far-fetched. I don't necessarily think anyone found like a magic wand in a tree somewhere, but I don't necessarily buy maybe alien technology. There is something going on with AI, in that the transhumanists are very in tune with it. We see a lot. We see most of the money being spent on AI. We see massive power shifts just based on who can have access to which processors and chips. We've even blocked China from buying certain NVIDIA chips and processors to keep them, uh, you know, a second class world power, right? Or at least not as powerful as we are. So AI, they believe in it a lot, whether we do or not. They believe that this is the future for them. I don't think I would take it to the point of saying that it was a demon, or that it was, anything crazy. It is a jump forward. It's a leap forward from where we were with standard processing. But most of the consumer level AI that we're able to use, certainly that I've used, is not really capable of anything at all. In fact, is rarely capable of giving you an artistic result that you're looking for, or getting your paragraph of text read correctly. If that makes sense. My experience with AI is it's generally incompetent and inept, and you have to do a lot to make it what you want it to be.
Yes, yeah,
So I don't fear it. I don't think it's going to hurt us.
no, neither do I, neither do I. I view it as a tool. There are a few, even some of my friends to a certain extent, that think that this technology, this tool is you're kind of playing with fire. They think that potentially AI is going to usher in this technocratic rule over us. And I kinda maybe I'm black pilled, maybe I'm not, but it seems as if we are heading in that direction regardless of whether Flood makes an AI infomercial or not. We can't necessarily stop what's coming. It's like the Pandora's box of technology has been open, and it will just keep, unfolding into the future. So, unless we understand it and know how to utilize it to our advantage, I don't wanna be living in the Stone Age while everyone is, living in the future. So that's what, I say. I don't think AI is scary. It's kinda creepy at some points, I'm waiting for the day where, let's say I get a little bigger here, I gain some traction. Who's gonna make a deep fake of me or another streamer and be like, "Well, look what this guy said," and then you're gonna wind up being in a point to where you're going to have to defend yourself that you weren't AI or prove that you aren't AI somehow. There's gotta be a way to do that, but I do you think I'm far off with that theory?
Not at all. Actually, Devin Stack has actually done quite a bit of gaming this out. I think he's thought this out quite a bit, and he's got some theories. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Devin Stack, Black Pilled, or the Insomnia stream, but he's a very thoughtful fella, and he's also kind of interested in this AI. And I think he's kind of just beginning to discover some of the stuff that we've been working with for a couple of years. And so somebody with the insight that he has into sort of how the movement works, how the public works, how the media and the Washington machine works, he's able to bring a little bit more breadth to his analysis. But he seemed to think that we would hit a point where you wouldn't know the difference between the truth and what's AI. And I think you're kind of hinting around that, where you may have to prove that you didn't do something instead of somebody proving that you did, and that's very difficult to do. This could change some of the fundamentals of our legal system. I mean, there are implications, and I'm not sure that we know how far those could go. The consumer level AIs that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, like I said, they're not just inept, but they're completely different models. The large language model is essentially an AI girlfriend, I suppose, potentially for a lot of people, but it's not very good at making decisions. Most of them can't figure. The Holocaust maybe isn't officially the way that that's been described. If you want your AI to count up the 6 million, it'll probably have trouble doing that, right? But it can't admit that to you, right? Because there are guardrails in the training data. Military AI will have no such guardrails, nor will it have any ethical guardrails. And we've already seen what they're willing to do with technology. We could just take a look at Ukraine, for example, where entire cities have been leveled, but they're covered in fiber optics, because drone warfare has become so popular there. That's what our enemy would use AI for, things like that. And I don't know that that AI is so incapable as what we've got access to, if that makes sense.
No, that does make sense, and I think that's more of the scary part. It's not guys like us, like you said, consumer level AI users. Um, but once you start thinking of our enemies, and not just our enemies like Antifa, etc., but enemies on a global scale. Some of our uh, allies even could be leaning towards that way in the future. So it's all things to consider, but it's not necessarily we're not at least I don't believe we are. We're not trying to fearmonger when we say these things, but we're trying to just raise awareness. Just, hey, be ready for what's coming because it probably's gonna. Um, to take it back a little bit more to a silly note here, you use otters a lot. If you guys tune on to the Flood Show, you're gonna see otters here, otters there, otters wearing SS uniforms. They're gonna be throwing Romans. Um, it is pretty great. Why did you choose otters as one of your uh characters?
That's a great question, and the first time watcher would probably have many such questions. The otters are actually part of a project, a side project that myself and a number of the tribe are working on, right? And so the idea is that the ADL is willing to list literally anything as a hate symbol, and we've had some run-ins with the ADL. We've been written up by them a couple times, but we want to get otters listed as a hate symbol by the ADL. So we started Project Otter, which essentially is flooding the zone with otter propaganda. A lot of people don't know that otters are generally the most racist animal out there, and they also are the most anti Semitic animals in the forest, and they don't like non whites. So we decided to make otters our mascot, and we want the ADL ultimately to list otters as a hate symbol. Um, it's a two prong assault, but I think that we could be successful at it if we could just get a few more people to catch on and really feel the essence of the otter, if that makes sense.
I dig that. I dig that. That's similar to back in the 4chan days where people putting the OK symbol, they tricked everyone into thinking that that meant white power, and then they're posting about it on news, all kinds of publicity. That's actually, I think, now that I'm thinking back, that's actually how I ever heard about 4chan for the first time was whenever they had that news story up about the OK symbol. And then I'm like, huh, what's that? And start your journey online. So that would raise some flags in people's minds. They'd be like, "Wait, the ADL said that otters are a hate symbol?" That is an awesome tactic, and thanks for sharing that, dude. Operation Otter. That's actually ingenious.
I've had people come into my show and say, "What's wrong with you? What's with all these beavers? You must be, mentally handicapped. You must be, you know, uh, what are you on? What?" But I don't think they really get it. You do. The ADL is willing to literally list rain as an anti-Semitic dog whistle. We want to make uh, an example of that. We want to point at that. We want to make fun of them. Ultimately, if we seriously sit across the table from this enemy and give them respect, we're giving them way more power than they should have. And so we treat these things mockingly. We don't respect the ADL. We don't respect any of these groups, these so called watchdog groups. Um, we believe that if anti Semitism really is a problem, and it's the biggest problem in America, according to some people, and they're the ones in charge of combating anti Semitism, then they should step down because they've done some of the worst work in history. In their own admission, uh, says there's more anti-Semitism than ever before. So that really is an admission of defeat, and so these people should go away or at least be replaced, right? I mean, if they really want to keep Jews safe, then they should be replaced with people who are better at combating anti-Semitism. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. And I didn't think about that way, dude. You're like Taco Bell, man. You're thinking outside the bun, and that's what I appreciate about you. It has been on the rise, noticing. noticing, and we touched on that at the beginning of the episode. And I think it's a good thing because, in my humble opinion, what we're doing, as if for the first time on a mass scale, is we are recognizing the world through a racial lens again, us being white Europeans. We're finally recognizing the world through a racial lens, and it's just we're living in reality for the first time in about 100 years. So it's very refreshing to see, because it's recognizing these things that are happening all around us all the time. That how is that hateful? Just verbalizing what we see, verbalizing reality, has been the new hate speech. And that kind of segues into another question that I wanted to ask you. So, with your technical skills and your computer skills, your knowledge, your dedication, you could have went so many different routes and could have been making so much money. You could have been rubbing your shekels together. But why did you want to be, or rather choose to be, an explicitly pro-white content creator?
Another great question. A number of circumstances came together. Number one, DEI hit really big in California around 2022. We started to see the mass replacement of whites in contracting, in government contracting, and in the private sector a little bit later. But I was a 30-year veteran of my former career and was simply just let go. In fact, we were in the middle of a project, a very big electrical project in California. I'm not sure if you're familiar with some of the wildfires that have happened out here because of electrical infrastructure being a little bit deficient. These guys spend billions of dollars on this stuff, right? And so when we started getting let go and we started noticing we were being replaced by third worlders, by people who we felt were not only unqualified but maybe even dangerous for the work, we protested and brought this up, and we were simply told that as white men we had no right to protest, and so we were all laid off. And it's very difficult to find work in California now. California just outright rejects any federal law, especially from the Trump administration. So around that time, my father fell pretty ill, and he's an older fella. So I started just being a caretaker for him. He got diagnosed with cancer the same year, and since then we've beat it, and he's clear. But I've just become a caretaker for my father, live streaming and kind of doing this obsessive midnight work that I do all the time, really meshed with my other responsibilities here at home. And I found by the grace and the generosity of God and the people around me in this community that I was able to make a living and sustain doing that work. And so that is one circumstance. The other was the audiobooks I was working on. When I did Mein Kampf, it took months. It cost maybe $1,100, $1,200 just in audio processing. So we went to Gab and we crowdfunded that. That's actually where I met Gypsy Crusader. Is my fundraising stream. Someone invited me to a live stream to raise funds for Mein Kampf. We raised enough funds, and on that same stream, Gypsy Crusader was on. He had just gotten out of jail, so that was one book. We've done 30 books now, but each of those books I've read 3 or 4 times during this process of making audiobooks. You read it, you listen to it, you read it and listen to it again. You're constantly editing. You're always proofing stuff, and so you really get to absorb this material. Mein Kampf is not an easy book to read. In fact, if when you read it the first time, a lot of people put it down and walk away from it. But it should be maybe the fourth or fifth book. It's not an easy read, but it is a very good book. And the more you read it, the more you'll get from it. In fact, you're never really done reading Mein Kampf. But such is the case with The International Jew or White Power or any one of a number of really fantastic books by authors like Irving and we did Goebbels from David Irving, just tons and tons of books. Pat Buchanan. I've even done some books that aren't necessarily along the lines of National Socialism, but by absorbing these things, just by doing the work, I've read these 30 books, and it's changed my life. Mein Kampf alone made me quit smoking. It made me stop being lazy. I mean, when you face what Hitler's writing about, and you face, the fact that you are in a dwindling demographic environment, that your people are kind of becoming endangered, and this obviously your enemy is following the playbook and being very effective at it. You get motivated, and what I found was this calling. Right, we call the 14 words, and I know it's characterized as one of the most evil sayings ever, but we have an obligation to secure the existence of our people, right? And to provide a future for our children. That is not a crazy statement. That is not hate speech, no matter what anybody says. That is a cultural, racial imperative that every person feels. And the more they can impress on us that's hate speech, the more cognitive dissonance we will build up, and the further we will get away from our cause. So, Mein Kampf is very good at orienting someone directly to that northern pole. And kind of like once you find yourself oriented, you may have lived your whole life not knowing what you wanted to do, or maybe not having a purpose, or maybe not feeling engaged. That changes instantly, where you're absolutely dedicated to a purpose, razor focused on it, and you can't wait to wake up in the morning. I'd wake up at 2 in the morning every day and just get up and get to work, whether it was making content or working on a book, just grinding really. And maybe you don't even always know what for, but you know that there will be a reason eventually. That just overcomes you. And once you're motivated and oriented and with purpose, you're a whole different person than you used to be. And so you really get a sense of where you are in your own progression and your own ability to progress even more. And so I think that's important for our people to find, and that instinct has been taken away from us. It's been programmed out of us through this culture, toxic culture.
Yeah,
We need it back.
yeah, in guys like you and I, and many, many others, as I hope my viewers soon find out through their own research. Guys like you and I are bringing it back, and you framed that beautifully. And I can't believe I'm telling Flood that, the silly guy. You framed that beautifully. That was so well put. This purpose-driven life that National Socialism not only cultivates, but puts forth in our people, the pride in our people that has been just completely shit on for, again, the past 100 years, is finally being reimagined and reawakened. And it's a beautiful thing to see. Like they have created this culture for us that keeps us comfortable and day in and day out. Well, no, you don't need purpose. You just here's some pills, you'll be all right. Or you don't need purpose. Just go to the bar, eat this highly processed food, eat, just eat the goy slop and shut up. And by the way, here's a tax increase. And also, hey, all of it are going to those people over there that don't work and hate you with every fiber of their being. When all these things start to become apparent, having that purpose in life is powerful. And anyone out there who is hearing this and might be like on the fence about things, just read a book, listen to one of Flood's audiobooks, find him on X as well, so you can find out what he's doing. But yeah, that's awesome, man. Um, Speaking about doing things in real life, what are some ways that young men out there, and even young women to a certain extent, what are some ways that whites can get out there and start advocating for our people?
I think maybe right now the active club model is very popular. I think it's arisen out of necessity. It's also risen out of, in some ways, destiny. Right? I don't discount destiny ever. In fact, never discount destiny. Never discount your place in the universe. Whether you're religious, irreligious, it doesn't matter, because I think we're very closely tied to the destiny of not just our own race, but other races, other things on the planet, maybe even the planet itself. That's a lot of responsibility to kind of take on, but start small and meet some people in your local area, because the internet can give you the illusion of progress sometimes, but you'll know real progress when people on your street are talking about these things, when people at work, are whispering about them, when people who would normally not talk about these things are beginning to entertain questions. That's really where the progress is, and you'll see that more in real life. You'll become healthier. You'll be challenged by people that you can be accountable to. And what I found through interviewing several active club leaders is that men need this. Men need fraternity. They need a challenge. They need a little hierarchy, and they need some discipline. And most importantly, they need to learn how important chain of command can be in certain circumstances. Chain of command is, life or death for just about anybody in the military. It's the same way in society, especially if you're a white male. So the opportunity to join fraternities and to bond with other males and to coordinate, discuss anything have been taken away from us. They've almost made it illegal to be a male, a white man in society. But for right now, you still can associate freely. You still can assemble freely, and we should use those abilities and rights to the maximum, because local networks and local politics are the only place you can make any change. A lot of people believe that you can, that Washington politics affects them directly, that the soap opera, going on at Capitol Hill in D.C. is the only problem that we have. But really, this is a systemic problem that starts with local and state governments. It starts really with our ability to participate, our interest and desire to become a part of the civic process. If we give that up, those positions, those jobs will be filled by power hungry people that don't have the same sense of altruism that we're capable of empathy, sympathy, but also responsibility, right? We are, I think, are inherently responsible. Most of us, some of us are maybe a little more corrupt than others, right? Because we do become corrupt over time by this culture. But generally, whites, Aryans, as I call them, Aryans is the proper term. Aryans are honorable people. They believe in law and order. And if the people in control of the government or the media or the banks aren't those people, then that's a recipe for disaster. And because these other people, maybe we're not familiar with their true nature, but it seems to be pretty predatory, and we seem to be easy prey to these kind of people. We don't really understand the mind of the insidious, kind of greedy, selfish types of people. If I could equate them as people, I don't really believe in that equality in that way, but I've been called a bit of a supremacist, I suppose.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think that that's a terrible thing. I think it just speaks to that sense of sense of importance in this universe. And people might hear us and they might think that that's narcissistic to a certain extent, but look at history. Or do we want the people who have created interplanetary travel, us, to be ruled over by countries who haven't even invented the wheel? I don't think so. Or countries of groups of people, rather, that their only means is extractive. They only extract, they don't put into society. I don't think so. I think you are right that that is a recipe for disaster. Now, I've noticed in my personal life that, and this just happened to me. I was on Night Nation Review last night. I popped on Nick's live stream, which was nice. One of our mutual friends here, and we talked about it. And I am seeing people who I haven't talked to in years. They'll see one of my clips on TikTok, or they'll see a podcast episode pop up, and they actually give me a call, shoot me a text, and they're like, "Hey, man, I didn't know you were like this too. I didn't know you were red pilled or J pilled or whatever they say." And you don't necessarily have to get in too much detail if you don't want to, if you don't feel comfortable. But out there in California, are you seeing any shift in the public, or is it kind of social decay there? Because California has kind of became a meme at this point. What do you see in your day-to-day life?
That's a great question. I think a lot of people think that California is really just wall to wall degenerates and hyper liberals, and they would be probably correct along the coast. So, but California, there are pretty, I think, viable conspiracy theories running around that California is majority conservative, right? And there are a lot of people that live, away from the coast and even in the foothills of the Sierra that are hyper traditional, hyper conservatives, and they don't like the direction that this state has gone. That doesn't matter much because California has managed to kind of cheat its way into a Democratic supermajority, in which case you get exactly what you would expect is a Congress full of liberals that not only vote but they vote as many possible destructive bills to what we would consider one of the finest states in the union, with the intention of destroying it. We're talking about Marxists here, and that's a really important thing to point out. Is that what we're experiencing as a society is not a society gone awry. It's a society that's under a color revolution at this point in time. And so, what we think are norms are not. What we think is popular is not. The things that they are insisting are unpopular are the most popular things. We're being told something by a media that's constantly wrong, and it's just building and building this racial tension and this cognitive dissonance. And a lot of people like my father are living in a world they don't understand. They don't understand how it got this way, and we don't have that luxury. Unfortunately, we understand exactly why, and so we have to not only be able to red pill other people, as you say, but we also have to be able to fight back. And a lot of people are finding themselves unable to maintain a regular life and still know the things that we know and still do something about it. And this is really where what you said earlier about real life connections, and how can a person get involved in this locally really comes into play, because you can easily become deluded to yourself believing that you're involved in this massive battle, and these forces on television are representing different sides. That's all fake. That's all window dressing. Most of it's theater. The white man does not have allies. The white man does not have friends in this world. Even allies will betray them, even if they intend not to. They still will. It almost seems to be destiny, as I mentioned before. But we have to do this the hard way, right? This what we have is a result of our own apathy. It's a result of our own laziness. It's a result of a very comfortable lifestyles, right? And so, at the very core of turning this around is turning around the white American male. This is something I think that Patriot Front has really tapped into. There are some other, maybe lesser known, but just as cool groups, active groups out there. My favorite are the National Socialist Aligned ones. They get a lot of negative attention, of course, because some of the symbolism is a bit taboo still, but I don't really worry about that. I'm always inspired when I see guys go out and march, when I see white men come together in any way to stand up for themselves or to demand that same equality that everybody else wanted so bad a few generations ago. That's inspiring, right? That's inspiring, and it's regular guys like you and me. They're holding down normal jobs. They're going to work 40, 50 hours a week. They're still making content in their off time. Maybe they're not giving enough attention to their wife or their kids, and they'll feel the strain in different places, but they're doing the extra work, right? Selflessly, because they feel this same spirit. A certain person back in recent history said that their spirit would rise from the grave and the world would know that they were right about a few things. I think that's what's happening right now. And that's what we consider the noticing.
Yeah, man. Yeah. That is you hit the nail on the head, brother. You hit the nail on the head. Um that is one thing that I wanted that you kind of made me think there is the symbolism. You mentioned Patriot Front. I can think of another group, and I think you've mentioned them on stream before, Blood Tribe. They're a little more brash, they're a little more blunt, and, in this white advocacy movement, if you wanna call it that, there are a lot of opinionated and disagreeable men on every single side, and we all have this, seem to at least, have this holier than thou mentality that not only does it give us that purpose, that supremacy feeling that you were talking about, but it also causes division. I'd like people to take a step back and instead of shitting on Patriot Front or shitting on another group or shitting on this group or that group, instead of doing that, recognize that it's just like a little clique of men who all vibe the same way. They all get along with each other. So instead of tearing these other groups down, it is time to say, hey, when it comes down to it, those guys are my friends. You know, yes, we might not be in the same news headline or the same article or the same march or whatever. However, to unify these groups in a professional fashion will carry us into the future. I think the saying goes like, we would rather see a million flowers bloom than one growing in a field alone. Something along those lines. But yeah, dude, that was this whole interview, man. It has been very powerful. Thank you for coming on.
This has been an absolute pleasure. And is it over already? I'd hope that we had a little bit more time, but either way, there's plenty of work to be done, and you're going to be hopefully coming on my show sometime this week, and I'd like to continue this because I do appreciate a thoughtful conversation. You asked me earlier on, maybe what would people notice about my show? It would be the lack of this. It would be the lack of real conversations, with people that are thoughtful, intelligent guys that really are interested in this cause that we have. I'd like that all the time. I get to do it once in a while with some of the interview shows, but I kind of miss being serious about this stuff because this is a serious thing, and I think that we'll probably diversify our programming a little bit to be more serious in the future. I think we have to adapt, right? We have to adapt. You'll have to adapt. You may find yourself changing formats, but this is always a continuation. The important thing to remember is this is a process, right? And this is what happens with the perfectionists or the guys that want to micromanage all the things that you do or say or who you can talk to, and this guy's not white, or this guy's they're those guys are always going to be around. They've never accomplished anything, and the accomplishments that have been made in this field have been done despite them, not because of them. And that will continue because they will continue not to be a factor. And so this will be controlled still by the people with the willpower and the courage to do it. And the resourcefulness and the opportunity counts too. But we will never win by listening to people tell us what we can't do. We will never get anywhere by waiting for a perfect critical mass before doing something. Has never been a viable strategy. It's bad tactics. It's bad planning, and we've always had to do the most we could with a small minority. Right? We're not going to reach a majority, but we're a very capable, potent minority because we have an intention, we have the same goal, we have the same purpose, and so even if we work differently or in different places, we're working toward the same purpose. When this happens at a certain point, then we'll become far more effective. We'll never really need to have a majority. We just need to have a big enough thresh. We need to meet a high enough threshold that we can actually implement what we want. And that's happening now. You're seeing that when people talk about our talking points. When you see a guy like Nick Fuentes or somebody talking about, white homeland or ethno state or, just any of those things he kind of uses, that's capital, but that's stuff that we came up with. Those are our arguments. They're valid arguments, right? And we can't let him trivialize those by using them and throwing them away, whenever he's done with them or when he's gotten where he wants to go. We still have a cause here, and we'll continue to stand. We'll be the guys outside, right? There'll be a guy on your TV telling you the hot takes. The guys outside, those are going to be our guys, right? Those aren't going to be groypers. There's not going to be Antifa, hopefully. But it's going to take American men to stand up and stop this, right? No matter what. It's going to take American men to stand up and stop this. And if we're lucky, when this is all said and done, and we have a society that we control that obeys and codifies natural law, that's going to be a national socialist society. We don't necessarily have to be a nationalist socialist society to get there, but when we are there, when everything is harmonious and when things work, you will have built a national socialist society. That's what the codification of natural law is, among other things. And so it's a destination. It's not the car, right? The car, who knows what that looks like, but it looks a lot like this. We've got to make the most we can of our time, and I see you doing that. We're going to continue to do it, and we'll be doing it again Wednesday, right? I think when you're coming on, is it Wednesday?
Yes. Yes, I will be coming on Flood Show on Wednesday the 18th at 8 p.m. That is going to be a good time, dude. I am ready for that. Also, Nick Fuentes mentioned you're going to have to put $1 in the jar. No, but you raise some good points there at the end. And as long as this doesn't get struck from YouTube and my career is over, um, then I would love to have you on again, dude. You showed me you actually have one of those otter skins. Maybe we'll do that for the next one. You can master your craft a little bit more.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, if these guys want to follow you, I normally check you out on Rumble. Repeat for the audience again, the platforms that you are on, my man.
Thank you. Floodshow.live will take you to Rumble anytime that we're streaming, which is usually 8 o'clock in the morning and in the evening. The normal show is 8 o'clock in the evening, but if we hit a bonus, we do a morning show the next day. So usually at 8 o'clock, I'm on, no matter whether it's AM or PM. Rumble, ftjmedia.com, Twitter, crusaders.gg, also majimedia.com, 88 streams, and entropy. And you can probably go. I have one of those link trees. I think it's like Volk Link. It's flooded Volk. It's Volklink dot / flood, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see if I've got that here in a text file.
Yeah, while
I think
you
I
look
do in
that
my
up,
stream info.
Yeah, while you look that up, I'm going to let the audience know that all the stuff Flood just mentioned, I'm gonna link the Rumble and link his X account down in the description, guys. Go check out the description. It is always packed. We have Antelope Hill Publishing discount. We have a Sacra Press discount. We have Beholden to Truth merch. One of my good friends, his merch is down there. You can get yourself some Save Europa or Anti-Zog merch. He's a good dude out here. But yeah, I will link everything down below. And Flood, do you have any closing words for our guests?
Yeah, just to finish, volklink.com / at flood for all my links. And don't be demoralized. Don't feel overwhelmed. One of the signature feelings of this whole thing is that you're going to be alone among your family. There's going to be nobody around you that understands you or what you're going through or the changes that are happening. But that doesn't mean you're alone. There's millions of us out here, and we all hear the sound. We all hear the call that's coming through our blood, and we all know what to do when it needs to be done. Trust in that and build yourself, prepare, right? Make yourself a better person every day, and leave the rest up to our destiny.
Sage advice. Sage advice. That was awesome. Like I said, guys, if you liked Flood, go check out his stuff. Also, leave a comment down below. We're trying to boost the algo. We love the algo. We have to caress the algo on this lovely Valentine's Day. Treat the algo right. Leave a comment. Tell me what you thought about my awesome guest today. And guys, this has been another episode of Mainstream Dissident. My name is Adam. I've been your host, and until next time.